The snow was falling gently outside the Anderson family mansion as I stood in the lavish foyer, holding a homemade apple pie. My mother-in-law, Victoria Anderson, looked at my offering like it might bite her, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against her designer dress. "Really, Emma? Store-bought would have been better." She didn't even try to hide her disdain. Behind her, my husband James shifted uncomfortably, suddenly very interested in his expensive loafers. I'd spent hours baking that pie, following my grandmother's recipe. But of course, nothing I did would ever be good enough for Victoria Anderson, who considered anything homemade hopelessly common. And that dress, she circled me like a shark scenting blood. "I thought we discussed the dress code for our family Christmas Eve dinner." My simple green dress had cost a month's worth of careful saving. Not that Victoria would understand the concept of budgeting, not with her husband Thomas's banking fortune supporting her every whim. "I think Emma looks nice," my sister-in-law Rachel offered weakly, but quickly fell silent under her mother's glare. "Nice isn't what we do here," Victoria snapped. "The Rockefellers are joining us tonight. The governor's family will be here. We have standards to maintain." I caught my reflection in one of the many gilt-framed mirrors. At 32, I looked younger than Victoria's Botox 60, but apparently that didn't matter when you were wearing last season's dress from a department store. "Where's your jewelry?" Victoria demanded. "Surely James has bought you something suitable by now?" Her eyes narrowed at my simple pearl necklace, my mother's last gift before she passed. "Mom," James finally spoke up, though he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Maybe we should." "Maybe we should what?" Victoria rounded on him. "Continue pretending your wife fits into our world?" "Really, James, when you said you were marrying a kindergarten teacher, we assumed it was a phase." 5 years. 5 years of these subtle digs and not-so-subtle insults. 5 years of James promising to stand up to his mother, then folding like a house of cards the moment she raised an eyebrow. "Victoria," I started, my voice steady despite the hurt. "I understand you have certain expectations." "Expectations?" She laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. "My dear, I expected my son to marry someone who understands our world. Someone who could handle the responsibilities of being an Anderson. Instead," she gestured at me dismissively, as if my entire existence was an affront to her sensibilities. "Instead, he brought home someone who thinks a homemade pie is an appropriate offering for a 5-star catered event. Someone who shows up in off the rack when every other guest will be in Channel and Dior." The front door chimed. Through the frosted glass, I could see the silhouettes of the first guests arriving. "Mom's right," James said quietly, still not meeting my eyes. "Maybe it would be better if you didn't stay for dinner." The betrayal shouldn't have hurt. It wasn't the first time he'd chosen his mother over me. But something about this moment on Christmas Eve, with snow falling outside and my grandmother's pie still warm in my hands, broke something inside me. "Better for whom, James?" "Emma, don't make a scene," Victoria hissed. "The Rockefellers are here. Just go home. We'll discuss this after the holidays." I looked at my husband, still fascinated by his shoes. At Victoria, already plastering on her society hostess smile. At the pie in my hands, made with love and care for people who had never shown me either. "You know what? You're right." I set the pie down carefully on the marble entrance table. "I don't belong here. I never did." Finally, Victoria sighed. "She sees reason." "James, shove her out the back door. We wouldn't want the guests to—" "Oh no," I interrupted, my voice carrying clearly through the foyer. "I'll use the front door, just like all your other guests." Victoria's face paled. "You wouldn't dare make a scene." But I was already walking to the door, my head held high. I pulled it open just as Harrison Rockefeller and his wife were about to ring the bell again. "Emma," Harrison's face lit up with genuine warmth. But I was already walking to the door, my head held high. I pulled it open just as Harrison Rockefeller and his wife were about to ring the bell again. "Emma." Harrison's face lit up with genuine warmth. "Nothing serious, I hope?" The children would be devastated if anything happened to their favorite teacher. "Nothing I can't handle," I assured her, noting Victoria's confusion with grim satisfaction. "Please enjoy your evening, and tell Emily she was a wonderful angel." I stepped out into the snow, leaving Victoria to explain my absence to the governor's wife, who was now approaching with her daughter, another of my students. What Victoria didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my little kindergarten teacher's salary wasn't my only source of income. The inheritance my mother left me had grown substantially under careful management. The educational software company I'd built in my spare time had just been valued at 8 figures. And the Anderson family mansion, the one Victoria loved to lord over everyone, it was about to go up for auction, thanks to some bad investments Thomas had made. Investments I knew about because I sat on the board of the bank that held their mortgage, anonymously, of course. As I drove home through the snowy streets, my phone buzzed with text after text from James. "Mom didn't mean it. Come back. We can talk about this tomorrow." I didn't respond. Instead, I called my financial advisor. "John, remember that property we discussed? I think I'm ready to make a move on it." Because Victoria was right about one thing. I didn't belong in their world. I was about to own it. 2 months after that Christmas Eve disaster, I sat in my lawyer's office reviewing the final paperwork for the auction. Thomas Anderson's financial house of cards had collapsed spectacularly, taking the family's carefully curated image down with it. "The auction is tomorrow," Michael, my lawyer, confirmed. "And you're sure you want to do this? It's significantly above market value." I smiled, thinking of Victoria's face when she'd been forced to tell her society friends they were losing the mansion. "Oh, I'm sure. Have you arranged everything exactly as I specified?" "Yes. The bid will be made through Shell Corporation BDA, completely untraceable to you. And the terms of purchase are non-negotiable," I finished. My phone buzzed, another text from James. "Please talk to me. Mom's a wreck. Dad's not sleeping. We can work this out." I added it to the folder of unanswered messages. In the 2 months since Christmas Eve, James had cycled through anger, pleading, and now desperation. Victoria had even tried visiting my classroom, only to be stopped by security. Apparently, being an Anderson didn't grant automatic access to one of the city's most exclusive private schools. Did you know, I mentioned to Michael that Victoria once told me teaching was a quaint hobby for women who couldn't do better. She never bothered to learn that half her social circle sends their children to my school. The auction itself was deliciously anticlimactic. I wasn't even there. My proxy handled everything while I taught my kindergarten class about butterflies. But I heard later that Victoria had attended, expecting some society friend to swoop in and save their precious family home. Instead, an anonymous corporation had outbid everyone, offering cash with one unusual condition. The Andersons would have to be out in exactly 1 month. "Emma," James cornered me outside my classroom a week later. He looked terrible, designer suit wrinkled, hair unkempt. "Please, Mom's having a breakdown. This house has been in our family for generations." "Really?" I raised an eyebrow. "Because I have the property records right here." I pulled out a folder. "Your parents bought it 15 years ago from the Williams family, another acquisition for Victoria to brag about." His face fell. Even their family history was a carefully constructed lie. "The new owners," he tried again, "they won't even negotiate. Dad offered above their bid." "With what money?" I interrupted. "The money he lost in bad investments, or the money your mother spent trying to maintain her image." The moving day dawned bright and clear. I'd arranged to be there, officially to ensure the transfer went smoothly. Victoria was supervising the movers, barking orders about her precious antiques while Thomas sat in his study, drinking at 10 in the morning. "Careful with that," she snapped as movers carried out her favorite settee. "It's worth more than you make in a year." Actually, I spoke up, checking my clipboard. "According to the auction records, most of your furniture was rented. The settee goes back to Hampton Lux Rentals." Victoria whirled to face me. "What are you doing here?" "Representing the new owners." I smiled pleasantly. "We need to do a final walkthrough before you hand over the keys." "You," she sputtered, "you have no right." "She has every right." James's sister Rachel appeared, looking exhausted. "Emma's the new owner, isn't she?" The silence was absolute. Even the movers stopped what they were doing. "What?" Victoria whispered. Rachel laughed bitterly. "Oh, come on, Mother. The anonymous buyer? The 1-month deadline? The detailed knowledge of which furniture is actually yours? Who else would it be?" I didn't confirm or deny, just kept checking items off my list. "Impossible." Victoria shook her head. "She's a kindergarten teacher. She makes nothing." "Actually," Rachel continued, "I did some research after Christmas. Emma's educational software company, it's worth millions. That little classroom you mocked, it's where half the city's elites send their children. And that homemade pie you rejected, The one she learned to make from her grandmother, Evelyn Montgomery. Victoria's face went white. The Montgomery family was old money, the kind of wealth that didn't need to show off. Your father, Rachel told me, he was Samuel Montgomery's son, wasn't he? The tech pioneer. I nodded, finally looking up from my clipboard. The same Samuel Montgomery who founded the bank that held your mortgage. Family connections are fascinating, aren't they? Victoria sank onto a bare stare, her designer dress crumpling. All this time, I agreed. You were so busy looking down on me, you never bothered to really look at all. By the way, the charity board you desperately wanted to join, I've sat on it for 3 years. They're the ones who recommended my school to the Rockefellers. James appeared in the doorway, face ashen. The house, you bought our house? Not exactly, I smiled. I bought my house. You're just the previous occupants who need to leave. Victoria found her voice. You did this for revenge. Because of Christmas. No, Victoria, I did this because it was a sound business investment. The fact that it makes you feel what you've made me feel for 5 years, that's just, what did you call it? A little hobby of mine. I walked through the house, now empty of their rented furniture and false pretenses. My heels clicked on the marble floors that now belonged to me. Oh, I turned back. Don't worry about forwarding addresses. Any relevant documentation will go through your lawyers. Documentation. Thomas spoke for the first time, emerging from his study. Yes, the divorce papers, for one. James staggered. Divorce? Did you really think I'd stay after Christmas? After 5 years of watching you choose their approval over our marriage? Consider this my parting gift. A lesson about judging people by their appearance. Victoria tried one last time. The governor's wife, the Rockefellers, they'll never accept you after this. You mean like they didn't accept me at Emily Rockefeller's birthday last week? Or at the governor's education fundraiser? Face it, Victoria, you're the one who doesn't fit in anymore. I held out my hand. The keys, please. Hours later, after they'd all gone, Victoria to her sister's guest house, Thomas to a smaller condo, James to wherever failed husbands go, I stood in the empty foyer, the same foyer where, 2 months ago, they tried to make me feel small. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. For what it's worth, you were always too good for this family. I smiled, thinking of Victoria's face when she realized who really held the power. Of James finally understanding what he'd lost. Of Thomas learning that old money isn't always obvious money. The mansion would make a wonderful children's hospital wing. The paperwork for the donation was already being drawn up. The Elizabeth Montgomery Children's Center, named after my mother, would serve families regardless of their ability to pay. And the foyer where Victoria had rejected my homemade pie, it would become a welcoming area where no one would ever be made to feel less than worthy. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just buying someone's house. It's turning their monument to exclusion into a sanctuary of inclusion. As for me, I still teach kindergarten, still drive my comfortable car, still bake pies from my grandmother's recipe. But now when the society pages mention the Anderson family's fall from grace, they also whisper about the quiet teacher who taught them the most valuable lesson of all. Never judge a book by its cover, especially when that book might own your mortgage.